Hello, everyone. My name is Xiaodong. This talk is about 4G LTE femtocells and man-in-the-middle tech. It's my second time to give an English speech, so I will try to speak slowly and clearly. Let's see the agendas. I will briefing introduction myself, and then talking about the LTE LAN RAN security in the real world, and then I will talk about how to route a 4G femtocell and give some details of the design of hacking box focus on S1 hacking. So who am I? I'm a hacker and ham since I am 13. So this is my lifelong hobby to do telecom security research. I'm an entrepreneur and educator in the daily life, and I do the security research at spare time. So when I go home or when I have some free time, I do hacking about telecom. And I founded a very small private college called HITBGSEC Institute, mainly focused on IT technologies. So let's go into today's talk. This is my collection of small cells. I have more than 100 of them. In IT industry, we call these femtocells, but in the telecommunication industry, these are called small cells. And some of them are femtocell, which are the little ones, and some are called Picocell and nanocell, microcell, etc. And this is my Huawei BTS. This is a commercial BTS. Actually, in this picture, there are two of them. This one, Huawei BBU, and this one, the same. So why purchase so many small cells? It's mainly because they are very cheap and very easy to get from Taobao.com. And I purchased more than 100 is for statistics and for collection of the older versions of firmwares. And after all, I can using all these small cells to build up our telecom labs in my college for training and for research. So what I discovered in the real world, here in the table you can see something interesting is very few 4G small cells have IPsec enabled. And nearly all the base stations have default local management password. You see, when the 2G or 4G femtocells, nearly all of them are using internet as backhaul, but 4G only have 5%. That is because the operator, they have some principle said they should not use third parties network as backhaul. So most of them using their own private network. As we want to hack 4G small cell, the first problem we face is we can easily get them from Taobao, but rarely work properly because they are using private network as backhaul. Since 4G internet backhaul is hard to get, that's why I'm trying to build up a proxy server. This is the 4G LTE network logical architecture. And this is the RAN, the radio access network. And this eNodeB is the base station. And this is more detailed logical architectures for small cells. We can see there are 3 more devices here, just for small cell access network. The first one is SeGW, which means security gateway. It provide IPsec to authentication and encryption of the communication between home eNodeB and MME. These are home eNodeBs, also called femtocells or small cells. And the second one is ACS. It's auto configuration server. Since there are maybe in China, maybe more than 40,000 small cells in a big city, they need to managed by auto config server. They running at TR69. And the last one is HENB gateway, which provide aggregation of the S1, MME, and all S1U. So there are 2 protocols here. One is S1U, which carries the user plan data, and the other one is S1 MME. It's for control plan. It's for signaling. So why focus on small cell security? Because more than 50 cellular traffic is consumed indoors, and most data applications are expected to be used indoors. And there will be a huge amount of small cells in 5G era. All these small cells are very cheap and not so secure, and could be physically touched by attackers. That's why I'm focused on small cell security. The backhaul of the small cell is also part of the access network. So let me give you some briefings. Most of the backhaul of small cell using XPON, which means GPON, EPON. So there will be a Cooper UTP or fiber, maybe, to ONU, which is the access point of the XPON network. And some of them, maybe fewer than XPON, is PTN or IPRAN. These are the operators' private network. And the very few scenario they're using internet. So there are flaws in the small cell backhaul because IPsec is optional. During 3GPP, the S1 management plan should be protected by IPsec, but in case the environment is trusted, IPsec is an operator optional. So in the real world, the practical, since XPLON network is secure, so the operator consider it as trusted network. And the network cable, either fiber or copper from the small cell to the ONU, which could be 100 meters long, was just ignored by the operators. So they see all of this as trusted network. So they do not provide IPsec protection, and which cause the network traffics in most of the cables are not protected. So which means they are all plain text and open to man-in-the-middle attack. Now let me introduce some of the small cells. This one is from Ericsson, and it's called a Picocell because all of the small cell, the Femtocells in China, they have to obey the rules of the operators. So the China Mobile defined the standard of Picocell, which means it have about 250 MV, the power of the Picocell. And this one, you don't need to do any work to route it because it comes with a root shell and SSD is opened. So when I tried with the default username and password with SSH, I can just log in. And here you can see the password and the shadow file. And here, the interesting thing is the port 22 is opened to all the interface. Which means if I have a local connection, a local root access to this small cell, then I can gain root access to all the other femtocells in the same network through the one interface. Here, you can see a LAN interface as a one interface. So I can gain root access from LAN interface, and through one, I can access all other Ericsson femtocells. And this one is my favorite one. It's called Canva. This one is from top 3 small cell vendor in China. and it is small, easy to carry, but by default there is no internet, no network access, either telnet or SSH. So I have to open it, and from the board I can see UART printed here. So I tried to use this UART to USB, and I can get two UART TTYs from these 6 pins. One of them is from a system running CPU H, and the other one is CPU L. The CPU H is well protected. I don't have the username and password, but the CPU L, when I connected using Picocom, and here I get the root prompt. So by explore the file dir of the system, in the root directory I found these files, and there is a get file and send file, which I can use to just get the file from the other system, the CPU H. So I get the password and the shadow, and I modified the password and the shadow file, and using send file to send the file back. So I changed the password of the other system. And also, using the same method, I copied the RCS, this RCS, to the CPU L system and modified to add telnet D and SSHD. So I get root shell from local interface, local network interface. So it's kind of easy. And if there is a question about how do I know the directory structures, well, there is another flaw of the local management system. It's using a web interface. There is a flaw, so I can download every directory in the file system just by insert a command to the local management interface. So they will compress the directory and copy it to the web directory, and then I can download it from the web interface. And this one is from ZTE. Maybe this is the most largest small cell vendors in China. So it's also rooted. And this one is from Huawei. Since it's very sensitive to talk about Huawei, so I'm not going to the details of this one. And this one is from Datang. Also my favorite one because this is very small devices. I can carry it everywhere in my backpack. But the code, since I have disassembled all the firmware, the code of this one is awful. what we can get when we routed the femtocell. So first, we can see all the SMS, all in plain text. In 4G networks, SMS delivered two ways. One is over NAS, which is using the signaling channel. This one, you can see using NAS download transfer, and this is the plain text of the SMS. And then another kind of SMS delivery method is SMS over IMS, which means voice over LTE. You can see here it's about SIP. It says SIP and SMS. Actually, the same thing. We can see the plain text of SMS. This is SMS from bank. And about the phone call, when the user, the subscriber have VoLTE enabled, we can see all the SIP AMR here, and you can save it using a third-party player to play this phone call. And of course, we can see all the internet transfer, all based TPU. And compromise femtocell can act as an IMSI catcher, a more advanced IMSI catcher. So we can get the IP of the subscriber, the IMSI, sometime MEI or GPS locations. But if they if a subscriber have VoLTE enabled, we can get more detailed personal information. Here we can see we can get the phone number. Yes, it's a phone number, and the IMSI, the IP address, and cell ID. And MEI. So when the subscriber handed over to our femtocell, they will perform a SIP register. During these procedures, all this information will transferred in a SIP protocol. Well, how to route a femtocell? First, we should purchase a working femtocell, and then we try to get a root shell. And after we get the root shell, we should try to get the IPsec keys if the IPsec is enabled. After that, we could eavesdropping all the network traffics. And if you could program, maybe you could perform man-in-the-middle attacks and try to attack the core network. The tools to route a femtocell, yes, we have digital meter. This one is for to test the UART pins. And this one is for UART. This is for JTAG. And the bus pirate is for enumerate the pins of the UART, and the JTAGulator enumerate JTAG and UART pins. If all the above are not working, the last thing we can do is solder the flash chip off, and using this flash programmer, just read out the firmware and try to decryption and disassemble it, and modify the firmware and flash it back, and solder the IC, the flash back to the board. Most of the Femtocells are using TSOP48, and Huawei and ZTE using TSOP56. The software to route Femtocells include TR069 ACS server. I'm using Genie ACS is to update firmware and upload modified the configuration. And IDA and the QEMU, OpenOCD is for JTAG debugging. And so that's all. Now we have a compromised femtocell, which is not very big. For example, this one, a combi with a battery pack and 4G internet router, which can provide internet access to the backhaul. You can pack all this in your backpack. We go to somewhere, for example, Starbucks, and turn on the femtocell and to see the phone nearby to register it in. Especially, they have VOTA enabled, so you get the telephone number, the phone number of everyone nearby. It's about 4 to maybe 50 meters nearby. Well, how to make a routed femtocell portable? If the femtocell comes with internet backhaul, then you are lucky. You just need a battery pack and a portable 4G router. But sometimes you are not lucky, so you will get a working femtocell, but with a private backhaul. What you can do is just add an internet access point to this private backhaul. After this, you can carry the femtocell everywhere you want. After this, you should say, maybe I could connect more, not just this one, and I need more femtocells. So how can you connect more femtocell? And after you can connect more of the femtocells, maybe you should think, why only eavesdropping? Why not to do some man-in-the-middle attacks? So this is the idea of hacking box of S1 comes from. But if you are unlucky, you get a femtocell which is not working anymore, mostly because they are using private backhaul, but you get this from internet, from Taobao, so you cannot place it into the private network. Or it has an internet backhaul, but the operator disabled the access of this femtocell. So the only thing you can do maybe to build up using this femtocell to build up a test environment to test telecom security or IoT security, which means you can use this femtocell as a eNodeB, and you have to set up your own core network and using your own SIM card. And so after we figure out we need an internet access point, after the design of the access point, I have found that there are more wide range of scenarios. Most of them are attacking scenarios. So it's not only the femtocell with a private backhaul, not only this, but you can using it at any backhaul without IPsec protection, which means you may not get the eNodeB, you may get the access to the eNodeB, but you can physically touch the backhaul, the cable of the backhaul. Then you can perform this attack. For example, micro base station, micro stations in a tower, the top of a tower. And they have fiber connections, fiber cables, maybe in your buildings, or you can touch it, so you can perform this. And if there are IPsec protection, but you can route the femtocell or the base station, you can also have this man-in-the-middle attacks. So what we are talking about is hacking the interface here, the S1 interface. So this is a signaling, this is the data, but it's only in one line, one cable. So we could attack it. The protocol in the backhaul is not only in the user plan and the control plan, but also network management based HTTP and HTTPS and IPsec sometimes. So this one is the backhaul. The implant at the backhaul and the hacking box of S1, I named it. So it has two RJ45 ports. It has a eSIM slot and have a mini PCIe 4G module, so we can have internet access. And there are two modes of the hacking box. One is gateway mode, and the other is transparent mode. The gateway mode, you need to modify. You need to be able to modify the configuration of the eNodeB to change the IP address of the MME to the IP address of the hacking box. And I modified the source code from SRS LTE to build up this gateway. This gateway is just working like a home eNodeB gateway, which offers a control plane aggregation and user plane aggregation sometime. After the aggregation, it will enable the MME, enable the core network to see a cluster of femtocell, many femtocells, as only one femtocell. Therefore, you can add as many as you want, but the core network cannot discover it. And by using gateway mode, we can perform man-in-the-middle attacks on S1AP and GPU. Here is some details about the home eNodeB gateway aggregation. Most of the femtocells or small cells networks in the real world, they have this device. Why the operators need this device? Because they want to reduce the signaling pressure to the core network. So this is a eNodeB, this is another eNodeB. Both of them have two connections. One is S1 MME, the other is S1U. So after aggregation, to MME only one link, and another link to the SeGW, which provide a user client data transfer. So all we should do is to build up a very simple HENB gateway for the aggregation. After aggregation, so we can provide the access for as many femtocells as you want. And another mode is transparent mode. So in some scenario, you do not have the ability to modify the configuration of the eNodeB, so you cannot change the IP address of the MME. Maybe you need the transparent mode. In this mode, we can only perform man-in-the-middle attack on user plane. So let me explain this. The key point here is to have a kernel module is a BPF filter to unpack and repack the GTPU protocol, the packet. So if you find a GTP packet which contains the address of your target, maybe your target a web server, a bank, or Facebook, I don't know. So you find this, and you're using the kernel module to repack the header of the IP, and then the IP can forward to your man-in-the-middle server. And the response back here, so you should modify the IP address to the original like Facebook server address. You modify this, and you add the GTP head to the packet, and then forward it to the eNodeB, and the eNodeB to the UE. And maybe you can perform the man-in-the-middle attack using DNS. So when you find there is a DNS lookup, and you can change the DNS server, the IP address of the DNS server, to your own DNS server. So you can give a fake IP address back after modified the IP address and added the GTP head back and send it back to the subscriber. Thus, you can perform a DNS-based man-in-the-middle attack. Or we should maintain a map in the memory about the IP address and the TEID of the GTP packet. So this is the detail of the transparent mode. The limitation of the hacking box. If you are working in a transparent mode, only user plan data attacks you can perform. So it's very hard to attack the control plane attack because of the integrity check of the MME to the UE. So you cannot break the integrity check. You cannot perform the man-in-the-middle attack to the control plane. And you cannot provide more eNodeB access in this mode, in the transparent mode, because you cannot perform the aggregation of the S1 MME protocol. But in the gateway mode, not only you can perform user plan attacks, but you can also perform limited of a control plan attack. In the user plan attacks, if the user have the voter enabled, sometimes you can also modify or manipulate the SIP packet, which contains the SMS or phone calls. So in the gateway mode, we can perform nearly all the man-in-the-middle attacks we can in 4G LTE environment, but very little attacks on the control plane because the integrity integrity check cannot be broken if you don't have the access to the core network. But if you, with the help of maybe diameter, an access point to the HSS, you can act as a MME, and you can get all the keys from HSS. Then you can perform the full control plane attacks. Okay, that's all about the hacking box of S1. So that's all about today's talk. Any questions?
I see that like you had maybe 6 to 7 here. I see that you had like 6 to 7 different femtocells. I think you played with them. So how many of them had the backhaul access, or did it happen that in the beginning when you tried to plug it to the network, maybe you had backhaul access, but after some days or some time, operator recognized that, okay, maybe this is a stupid device, and then he removed you from the access. So did it happen something like this, or could you comment on all this?
Yes, it happens. I have, maybe in the picture, I have more than, I think, 70 femtocells. But among all of these, they have maybe 3 or 4 of them have backhaul access from internet. And but you can see the 2G or 3G femtocell, they are very small. More than half of them have internet as backhaul. But as time going, after 1 year, nearly 30% of them lose access to the security gateway. The same thing happened to the 4G femtocell. Among 4 of them, 1 is losing access after maybe 9 months. So the operator really do some security check, but not so often.
So I have 2 questions. First of all, funnily enough, I actually worked on the original design for these femtocells back in the early 2000s as part of Vodafone. I worked with Huawei and Alcatel-Lucent to design some of the security for them. And it's interesting to see how it's not evolved. One of the requirements that was put in was that there was going to be a location lock in these devices, so GPS, etc., to make sure that you couldn't put it in a backpack and walk around with it or take it to other countries. It doesn't seem to me like you're finding anything like that now. Are you finding GPS locks inside the femtocells?
No, none of them in China, but I know some of, or maybe nearly all of them, all the femtocells sold in US. They have location locked. Some of them based on GPS, some of them based on IP or neighbor cell.
Yeah, and radio fingerprint was the other thing they're supposed to be using. Yeah. That's interesting. So, and the other one, which is potentially a controversial question, is in all your analysis, have you found anything that looks like backdoors inside any of the femtocells?
There are too many vulnerabilities in the binaries, so I cannot find which one is backdoor. Yeah. Maybe some of them are really backdoors. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the floor before we move on to Slido?
Thank you. My question is similar to what the gentleman before me just asked. I wanted to understand, has there been any improvements or evolving in the security? Because it seems that this is very the status that the femtocells are in at now, the way you've described them, they seem to be quite the same as what they were like 5 years ago, for example, when femtocells first started being used in 3G networks. So how is it that no improvements have been made? Or are you looking only at old products, or how new is your newest femtocell that you tested?
I think some of them are very new. So I bought this femtocell maybe every week from Taobao or from the outsourced company of the operators. They have some femtocells left after a project, so they sell it. So the version I researched is very new, but I cannot find any improvement of the security. But in the 2G, 3G, because most of them are using internet as backhaul, I could find some of them have IP address lookup protection, which means if you are using it in another province, you can connect it to the security gateway, but the handshake stops sometimes after stops after some time, so it cannot perform the real connection to the core network. Yes. So the main point about the HBOS, the hacking box, I think they're working with the femtocell mounted in maybe a business area, maybe in your company. So it's in the wall, in the roof or on the wall, and the cable maybe in the corner and downstairs to maybe to the some ONU where that's located, maybe in the basement, I don't know. So you can change the cable, modify the cable, since it's in your company or the environment you can full controlled. So you don't need to buy from Taobao. You don't need to purchase these femtocells because in 5G era there are maybe many small cells near you. You can eyesight some of them. So all you need to do is just to implement this hacking box.
I have another question. So some of the vulnerabilities you described earlier on are depending on you knowing the username and password, because they probably default or easy to guess. What if they were actually implemented in a network where the operator has a very good or strong security policy, and it's not easy to and you don't know the username and password? Are you still able to?
Yes. If you have enough time,
yes,
sooner or later you will get full control of this device.
Even if there's a strong policy for.
Yes.
How so?
Maybe several days or maybe 1 month.
Okay. You just keep trying.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have a few minutes left if there are any more questions from the floor. No? Okay, can we perhaps answer? There's a couple of high voted questions on the screen there.
Okay, the first one, how much will it cost? Well, it's just the cost of the small cell. in China, I can buy one of them, maybe nearly 200 yuan. It's about $30 in Taobao. So you have eNodeB purchased from internet, and the core network is just using your PC or your PC server. And then you need a SIM card reader and some blank SIM card. So that's all. Second one, how can I treat it? Well, I think they cannot detect right now. They cannot detect the man-in-the-middle attacks, but they could maybe find some of the signal or from their legitimate BTS, because when a user hand over from your cell to another cell located nearby, they will report to the core network the original cell ID, tracking area code. So maybe the carrier could notify after they do some big data research or something like that.
I think we've maybe got time for one more. Yeah.
Yes. The vendors really provide updates to these Femtocells, but as I know, some of them are outsourced. Just like the large tower, the micro base station, the small cell, the small base station are maintained by the outsourced company, not the operator themselves, but the outsourced companies. Even the update or the management of these small devices are outsourced sometime, are outsourced to the outsourced company.
I think we're out of time there, so please join me in giving a huge thank you to Xiaodong.
Thank you.